So this all started out because I was doing a new Atmos mix where a sound goes from the front left straight up, across, and then straight down to your front right. And I realized if you're using in-ceiling speakers, you're not going to experience it that way. And then I came to the conclusion that if you are using 4 in-ceiling speakers, you're probably about at an 85% Atmos experience. You want to bump that up to 95 to 100, you should go with high channels. Let's talk about it. And I am back. What is up, YouTube? How are you doing? Chana D, your Techno Dad here. And we're going to talk today about which is better, in-ceiling speakers or high channels. And we're going to take a deep dive because I've heard from either side, oh, in-ceiling's better. And then I've heard other people say, oh, high channel is better. So which one is better? And today I am wearing the Star Wars A New Hope shirt because I am hoping that showing the disconnect between how Atmos is created and how it is consumed in your home will kind of shed some light on what is better and how we can get a better Dolby Atmos experience. So that is what I am hoping for today. So there is an interactive companion video to this video. You'll have to go into the description of this video, sign up for my newsletter. They'll send you a verification email. You verify your email, then you'll be sent an email, another one, a welcome email with the link to download the companion to this video. I mixed the companion video in 7.1.4 Dolby Atmos. You'll have to take the MP4 file, stick it on a thumb drive, put it in your Blu-ray player, Zapd, Plex. Some people have been putting it into their TV and e-arcing the Dolby Atmos to their AVR. A whole bunch of stuff has been happening, so that's really cool. But then you'll be able to actually experience what I'm talking about and then come back to this video and report back your findings so that we can kind of collect the data and see what's actually happening in your home. Of course, this is for people with 4 in-ceiling speakers, but everybody else can also follow along as well. But again, you'll need to watch this video first, so let's bring on the slideshow. Oh yeah. All right, everyone, here's the slideshow, and I got this image from Dolby's website, which is a side view of the room with in-ceiling speakers. Now, if you look at the border of this image, this is our room boundary. Now, this picture is what I see when I'm creating Atmos in Logic Pro. This is the Dolby Atmos renderer. Now, this is the one built into Logic. The other one from Dolby is pretty much the same thing, a little bit different, but it's the basic idea. Now, this, however, is not the room boundary. This is the speaker boundary. Now, if we overlay the two, we can see that the speaker boundary is smaller than the room boundary. But this is still not 100% correct. Now, back in Logic, when I place the sound in the front left speaker, we'll see a little ball here in this front left bottom corner. If I put a sound in the right speaker, I'll see a ball in this bottom right. This one in the back here is your surround back right, and this one on the left is your surround back left. So everything on this plane here is an ear level speaker. And if we go up to the corners, these are your height channels: front height left, front height right, rear height right, rear height left. So when we look at this image where the speaker boundary is overlaid on top of the room boundary, this one is not 100% correct, right? Because if I were to play a sound, that isn't really aligned properly with the ear level speakers. So this speaker boundary is now adjusted. So if I play a sound in your front left speaker and overlay it with the room boundary, here we go. Now everything is aligned. The speaker boundary is aligned with the room boundary properly. And I think this is one of the disconnects, is when we see these images separately, we don't actually correlate them to what they actually are. So now that the room boundary and speaker boundary diagrams are overlaid and aligned properly, there are two things that really catch my eye. And it's the fact that with these in-ceiling speakers, there are two big holes in the speaker boundary, right? These sections here, there's no coverage when you're using in-ceiling speakers of this space in this room boundary. So now if we go back to Logic with your augmented, room boundary, this is what we're getting. However, in Logic, I'm seeing this in Logic, but this is what you're experiencing in your room. Here right now, we have a huge disconnect. So if I place a sound here, basically it's a sound that needs to be imaged from your front height left, front height right to make the sound appear like it's coming from the center top corner of your speaker boundary. And now we move to your speaker boundary. You can see that the sound is outside of your speaker boundary. Now let's bring in Dolby's original image. The big question is, where is this sound going to be placed? Now, some of you will be like, oh, well, if the in-ceiling speaker number 7 here is pointed down and has good dispersion, it'll probably image pretty close to that sound. Yeah, true, that could happen. But majority of you have already said that your in-ceiling speakers are angled, pointed at your main listening position. So where is this sound going to be placed? Could it be placed in this yellow? Could that be it? Or how about this orange? Or maybe even this red, which is probably very, very wrong. So let's back it up a little bit. I've always said you're going to get a better home theater experience if you have better room calibration. So let's think about it in that way as well. Let's say you have an AVR or preprocessor that, costs $3,000 or more. You get a sound at this yellow spot, which is probably as close as it could be, right? Further front of your speaker boundary, as high as possible, right? And maybe this orange one is an AVR that costs like $1,500 and the room correction isn't as good. And then maybe this red one is an AVR that costs $500 or less, and it's got really bad room correction. The point is, we don't know where Dolby is putting this sound. So let's remove the speakers again and just see. In Logic, the sound is up front in the corner. This yellow one's not bad. The orange one, not that great. The red one. Either way you slice it, all these 3 placements are just wrong. They're just wrong. The original sound is the green circle. So all these other circles are just wrong. All these placements are just wrong. So which brings me to this. If I place a sound right above your head, how are your in-ceiling speakers going to image to get that sound properly? And again, if they're pointed down, 7 and 8, if speakers 7 and 8 are pointed down and have good dispersion, maybe it might be able to image that maybe a little bit lower. Now, if your in-ceiling speakers are pointed at your main listening position, there's probably no way that they could image this sound properly. It's probably going to be a lot lower, so you won't get that sense of height above you. However, if you have height channels, they will for sure be able to image that sound without issue. They will be able to image a sound closer to your speaker boundary up front and in the rear. So now let's remove those sections from earlier. In these 2 sections in the front and rear, your in-ceiling speakers are just not able to image those sounds properly. They just can't. Physically, they just can't, because those sounds lay behind the speaker, in essence. However, with height channels, you can image all of those sounds properly in the place where I put them in Logic Pro. So let's remove the Logic Pro overlay and keep the height channels, but add the angles back. If we extend the angle lines from the main listening position person's head in the middle there, you can see that these speakers are set up at 30 degrees pretty much, give or take 1 or 2. So 30 degrees. That sounds so familiar. I don't know where I'm remembering this from. Do you guys? Who's that? It's Wolfried. So was he just right after all? Now, if we overlay the Dolby Atmos renderer on top here, what do we have? What does this look like to you? Because this is what I see. Now, when I am creating Dolby Atmos, and not just me, everyone else using the Dolby Atmos renderer. So everybody creating Dolby Atmos, we are creating Dolby Atmos with a speaker boundary that mimics an Oro 3D speaker layout. But when you're at home, you're experiencing Dolby Atmos in this speaker boundary. This is the big disconnect. I'm creating Dolby Atmos in this speaker boundary. You're listening to Dolby Atmos with this speaker boundary. 100%. You're missing big sections of the speaker boundary. So you will not be hearing the sounds I place closer to the front speaker boundary or rear speaker boundary, or even the tops of the ceilings. You are going to hear those sounds more forward than they would be, both front to back, and lower than they would be from top to bottom. So there you have it. That's the disconnect. Atmos is being created with a speaker boundary that lines up with an Oro 3D speaker placement, but you're at home and Dolby's telling you to use a different speaker placement. Instead of 30 degrees, it's 45 to 55 degrees. Why is that? Well, it's simple. And I've told you guys this plenty of times that nobody listened and you thought I was crazy, but it boils down to one thing, and that's the lawsuit. So if you want a better Dolby Atmos experience, you would want to set up your speakers as height channels as opposed to in-ceiling speakers, because the only reason that Dolby has it this way is so they don't get sued. So this is where I need your help, okay? If you have 4 in-ceiling speakers, buy the book Dolby Atmos Setup or whatever you want to call it, and you want to see where these sounds are ending up, and if you can tell me, where they do end up, download the file, play it in your home theater, come back to this video and, let me know so that we can kind of collect all this data, because Dolby just said, oh yeah, if you have a smaller system or your system isn't exactly the same, it'll just matrix and the sound will be exactly where it needs to be. And from my little slide presentation, that that's just not the case. And we're left in the dark. I'm just trying to figure it out, because there is a 100% a disconnect in creation of Dolby Atmos and the consuming of Dolby Atmos in your home. Huge disconnect, and we need to shed light on that. So make sure you sign up for my newsletter, verify your email, you'll get the welcome email, and then download the file, put it on a thumb drive, and then play it in your Blu-ray. Let me know what happens and give me some details on your system so that we can properly figure out what's happening and if there is a difference in the decoding of Atmos from AV receiver manufacturer to AV receiver manufacturer. If the better room correction does a better job at placing that sound or not. I don't know. So we're all just here learning together. Now, for those of you that have already signed up for the newsletter, I already sent out the file for you guys, so you should already have it. Just check your inbox and also check your spam or junk. I know there's been a lot of people like, I didn't get the email. Check your spam or junk. It'll probably be coming from Chana De Silva. That's me, your techno dad. Anyway, that's it. That's all. Don't forget to subscribe, like the video, all that YouTube nonsense. And we'll see you in the next one. Peace.